Good morning, everybody. Nick from Meadow Green Farm here again. And we just finished another pasture move. We're almost to the 20th of December in Nova Scotia. And for the most part, these cows have been exclusively eating forage out in pasture. Now, we had a snowstorm about 10 days ago, and we had to haul some hay up here and feed these guys for a few days. But other than that, all they've been eating is the forage in the field, just grown from the sunlight and rain and then time throughout the growing season. And now we're able to feed our cows possibly into January. So I want to talk about today my experience farming and growing food, and why I think cows are the most sustainable source of food on the planet. It's nutrient-dense meat. I think we all know that. But there's a bad rap in the media right now linking beef production with climate change. And as far as I can tell, having worked in a professional capacity in the environmental sector for many years, that this link between cows and climate change is a totally false narrative. And not only do cows not contribute to global warming or climate change, they're also the most sustainable form of food security that any community can have. They're grown without inputs from abroad. My cows are fed hay over the winter. The rest of the time they're on pasture eating grass. My hay comes from a neighboring field made by a local farmer. It's not trucked in. It's not taken in on rail. Issues with feed don't occur when the ports in Vancouver are clogged up and congested like they are now. It is the most reliable source of food a community can have. And I truly believe that. And these cows are so healthy right now. And healthy animals equals healthy food. And the people that consume that in turn become healthy. So the big criticism of beef, at least for the last 15 years or so, has been the carbon emissions associated with cow farts. So during the process of rumination, cows have a 4-chambered stomach. Part of that is the rumen, where they digest leafy greens that we cannot turn into protein, but they can. During that process, carbon dioxide is created in their stomach and they fart it out. So there's been a lot of criticism of beef production for that alone. And in recent years, a number of published peer-reviewed studies have come out which have totally debunked this. Yes, cow farts contain carbon dioxide, but when you're rotating your cows through pasture like we're doing here, you're building organic matter in the soil, and organic matter is carbon. And when you're managing your cattle correctly, you're sequestering more carbon in the soil than the cows are releasing to the atmosphere. It's a net negative carbon enterprise. And so in the last couple of years, the evidence supporting this has become quite strong. And so this narrative of carbon dioxide related to beef is beginning to fade away. Now we have this new attack coming in on beef, which is talking not about cow farts, but this time it's cow burps. And the greenhouse gas emission that they're pinpointing this time is methane. So methane is a much shorter-lived substance. It enters the atmosphere and it disappears quite quickly, unlike carbon dioxide, which can accumulate for long periods of time. But notwithstanding, this methane that cows release has to be viewed in the context of the whole system in which this methane is being released. So let me explain. The cows burp and release methane. That's occurring all around us right now. The other thing that's happening right now is the transpiration that's occurring with these plants, these leafy greens in front of me, is releasing water vapor into the atmosphere, which is interacting with the sun, and it goes through a process known as photooxidation, which creates something known as methane free radicals. These methane free radicals bind to the methane released by these cows, and they transform it into a different substance, which is no longer a greenhouse gas emissions. And when you're on pasture land like this, the amount of free radicals released from the soil and the grass is 100 times greater than the amount of free radicals required to offset the methane that these cows are releasing. And there's lots of peer-reviewed literature to support this. It hasn't been talked about as much, but that is, from what I can understand, is the truth. Now, the other thing is, in North America, and if you go back far enough in the world, the population of ruminant animals which are responsible for all of these supposed harms, wild ruminant animals at one time were in much greater numbers than the total number of beef and sheep and other ruminants like bison that they raise. They used to exist in much higher numbers than they do today. Also, I'm sure that during that time they were releasing methane, burping methane and farting out carbon dioxide, yet the climate was colder. In fact, the number of buffalo in North America pre-European settlement was probably twice as high as the current beef herd is today. Which makes you think, if ruminants in the process of digestion are creating greenhouse gases, which is a major contributor to climate change, wouldn't climate change and the effects caused by ruminants been much greater many years ago? And the answer is no, they weren't. And it's because grasslands, as I mentioned, in this process of releasing free radicals into the atmosphere, trap the methane and transform it into a non-greenhouse gas emission. So it's really disheartening to see a bunch of people flying in from all over the world, many of whom are on private jets, landing in Scotland. And private jets have to be probably one of the worst sources of carbon emissions on the planet. Think about a plane, capacity to hold 100 people, carrying 3 delegates, flying across the ocean and landing in Scotland. Well, those are the people that are pinpointing cows, these beautiful creatures, that are transforming this landscape into something fertile and abundant. And they're pointing the finger at these guys and saying these are to blame and we have to stop eating beef. Or as they mentioned in an article, we should only be eating about 14 grams a month. Well, I eat more than that in most meals, and I don't feel bad about it. And when I look at the science objectively, I know I'm having no impact on the climate. So if you're eating beef, you're consuming grass-fed beef, and people start pointing the finger at you, blaming you for climate change, you can tell them that cows sequester more carbon in the soil than they release to the atmosphere. And the byproduct of grasslands creates free radicals, which transform methane into an inert substance which doesn't contribute to climate change. And last but not least, I made the point, but I'll make it again. This is the most secure form of food a community can have, especially these animals. I truly believe that. They don't need barns to overwinter. We can use natural infrastructure such as spruce trees and the forest, and that's all these cows need. They're a heritage breed, they're hardy, and it's just a real joy watching these animals grow, and it is a joy providing healthy, nutritious food to all my customers. So I wanted to say thank you to all of you, and thanks for listening to my rant. And you can share this far and wide. I think it's a discussion worth having, and the people that are pointing their fingers at cows need to wake up and smell the roses.